Good morning and good afternoon to all the participants. We're just about to begin our masterclass. Our topic for today's masterclass is cash application automation for Europe. And we have with us our masterclass speaker, John Salick. John is a strategic AR advisor and a subject matter expert at Emagia Corporation. With this, let me now invite John to get our session started. John, over to you.
Thank you, Akshay. And we have another good session for you today. And I'll quickly review the agenda here. After a quick introduction, we'll talk about the challenges of cash application and those challenges that are specific to Europe and the European economy. Then we'll talk, just briefly revisit the evolution of cash application to kind of show you the progress that's been made and the very large opportunity for improvement that's available today. And then we'll dive, and that opportunity is artificial intelligence powered cash application. And we'll take a deep dive into that and explain its features and its benefits and a little bit about how it works. And then we'll just recap the benefits, share with you a customer success story, which is pretty impressive in my view. Wrap it up with a conclusion and then answer any of your questions. You know, just to introduce this topic, the genesis of this opportunity is the major advancements in digital technologies. And that's kind of a broad brush. And certainly these digital technologies have benefited many types of activities, many operations across the board. But we're going to focus today on how they have presented a big opportunity for improvement in the cash application operation in a number of dimensions: cost, speed, and accuracy. And as I mentioned earlier, the European economy presents some unique challenges to achieving world-class performance in Cash App. And we'll look at those as well as the challenges that are generic to cash application, no matter where it's performed. But I think a key point to bring up here and to remember throughout our discussion today is the digital future is here. I mean, it's not the system of the future, the system of 2030. It's here and it's up and running today, and it's benefiting companies. So, you know, nice to have opportunities to improve. Question is, are you going to take advantage of it? You know, are you in a position to do that? But, you know, the first step is awareness of the opportunity and its potential magnitude. All right, let's dive right in here. And again, we're going to talk about the challenges of Cash App, both in kind of a generic sense, but also those specific to Europe. And, you know, before we get into that, I just want to mention, you know, cash application, very important operation. It's kind of unsung. When it works well, nobody really notices other than those directly responsible for it. And but when it doesn't work well, the problems bubble up and in some cases can be pretty serious. And let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say the cash application is slow. Payment is received Monday. Customer accounts aren't updated till Wednesday or Thursday. 2 to 3 day lag. What's the big deal? Well, if it's a customer that's got a fair amount of past due receivables and they place an order on Tuesday, maybe that order will be held for non-payment. And somebody will call them up and say, hey, got your order, thank you, love to fill it, but you got to pay for these old invoices. And then the customer says, I did. And you don't know that because the cash hasn't been posted. You know, not only is it embarrassing, but it really hurts. You know, you talk about customer experience. customer satisfaction, it shoots a hole in that and is just a good way to drive away customers. So that's probably the biggest thing. But again, backlogs and then misapplication, different things can go wrong that can cause some pretty big problems. But when it runs smoothly, as I say, most people don't notice. Certainly management doesn't notice. So for a process like that, what are the challenges? Well, the page is full here. Let's look at them. And certainly multiple currencies, which certainly is a challenge in Europe. Despite the EEC, everybody using euro, there's still a lot of trading partners outside the EEC who don't use the euro. So you've got different currencies and, managing the foreign exchange differences. When a customer pays and sends you the remittance advice, which I list here as Remit Advice, comes in multiple languages. You need to understand that precisely to accurately post cash. Inevitably, there's utilization of multiple, if not many banks located in different countries, local banking regulations, and some of our clients have mentioned that data transmission issues amongst and from these banks occur fairly frequently, certainly more frequently than they'd like. Another challenge facing cashapp across the globe is accommodating the newer digital payments like Square, PayPal, Stripe, etc., which customers are embracing, and that's how they want to pay you. So you've got to be able to accommodate those and apply the cash accurately. And then Europe specific, the European Economic Commission, EEC, has put out a Payment Services Directive, PSD. There was an original one. The second one, known as PSD2, came out a few years ago. And those requirements are laid out, but they're always being clarified, maybe tweaked a little bit. So keeping up with those evolving requirements is a challenge. And that's very much Europe specific. Next major challenge is one that occurs to cash application in all regions. It's the remit advice, the remittance advice. Now remember, when it comes to cash application, you must apply the cash the way the customer instructs or intends. Unilateral cash application can cause you a lot of problems down the road. Had a client years ago that disregarded the customer's remit advice and just took the payment and applied it to the oldest invoices, almost like a balance forward method, like your credit card statement. That caused huge problems, tremendous customer pushback, and they ended up assembling a team of about 15 people for 8 or 9 months to correct the misapplication. Because remember, you have to reverse the original application and reapply, and you go back in time. What a mess. So you want to follow the remit advice, and to do that, you need to understand it, and you need to get the information you need. But the remit advice comes on hard copy, scanned images, comes in on an EDI 820 transmission. Customers can email it to you. You can download it from a customer's vendor portal or your own EIPP customer care portal. Customer makes a payment on your portal and tells you to which invoices the payment applies. That information is available on your portal. Let's get it in. And then banks send files in various formats, all with the remit, this valuable remit advice with its variation. And again, the remit advice comes in about as many different formats as you have customers. It's not unreasonable to think that every customer's remit advice is unique, maybe just slightly, but still unique. And even within vendor portals, one of the big complaints we hear all the time is, well, geez, vendor portals are great. The concept is great, but it takes me or my staff quite a bit of time and effort to understand how to properly navigate it and access the information I need. And no two are alike. And so it takes a pretty big investment of time to really master a customer's vendor portal. Deductions, that's always a fly in the ointment. And most of the clients we've worked with in Europe see a fair number of deductions for all the usual reasons: price, damage, shortage, but also sometimes in any expense that the customer feels they need to recoup from you, they take in a deduction. And then, like most companies, if you've had some acquisitions in the past few years, chances are some of them have not yet been integrated into your base ERP system. So you're dealing with multiple ERP systems. If you're a shared service center, you're almost certainly dealing with multiple multiple ERPs. And again, another challenge. So there's a lot of challenges for a process that operates under the radar in a lot of companies. Let's take a minute here and just explore a little further digital payments. I mean, they're a good thing, right? Yes, they are. Go by different names, sometimes called real-time payments, sometimes called frictionless digital payments. And to me, cutting to the chase, one of the big advantages is that they transfer the funds and the remit advice together. Then you probably think, well, what's the big deal? Well, when you think of EDI with your major trading partners, the money, the payment, comes generally through an ACH transmission to your bank. The remit advice comes in a separate transmission through EDI. Now, theoretically, it's simple to match the two up. But it is nice when the two travel together. And, these digital payments have adequate security, directly between buyer and seller through a secure gateway on an account-to-account basis. So they're a good thing. One of the big advantages, particularly for the smaller and medium-sized customers, is they provide the ability to pay in multiple currencies. Nice. So you don't have to have a big banking relationship and have balances in dollars, euros, etc., pounds. You can pay with these digital payment technologies in multiple currencies. And as I alluded to earlier, these digital payment technologies are being embraced pretty quickly and growing fast, particularly the small and medium-sized businesses. And why is that? Well, it's more convenient, easier, faster. What we have found is many small and medium-sized businesses, the money's controlled by the owner, the principal, and they're very busy driving revenue, billing orders, hiring people. And so often the administrative tasks, like paying suppliers, takes place in the evenings or weekends. Well, the digital payments enable that. And you can do it on a mobile device. So it really adds to the convenience. And as I say, more and more customers are adopting this and displaying a preference for digital payments. So if you're running a cash app operation, you need to be able to accommodate those and get the information you need. Big step forward here with digital payments, right? Many challenges that we just talked about. The history of cash app has evolved tremendously. If you look at the graphic at the bottom, it was predominantly manual. Payments came into the bank. The bank would create a file that contained all the remit information, or you got the remittance information, a little tear off sheet of paper, and you'd read which invoices were paid, and you'd key punch that in, and you'd apply the cash. Optical character recognition. OCR was, in its time, a big step forward, because then you didn't have to deal with paper. You had images, which could be accessed 24/7 and from anywhere in the world. So, and transported to whomever. So, big step forward. Then a few years ago, robotic process automation came out. Another big step forward. And I think of RPA as a tool that emulates a human being's interaction with an ERP system, particularly in terms of data input and operation. So this was a step forward as well. But the next big thing is artificial intelligence, AI, and its document data capture assistance. And this is the next big step forward. And this is what provides that large opportunity that I described at the outset. Just to give you an overview here, artificial intelligence enabled cashapp. Well, at Emagia, the document data capture assistant is named Gia. GiaDocs. Gia is this document data capture assistant. And it basically extracts data from Remit Advices and inputs it, or to use an old phrase, key punches it into a file in various formats, that usually a CSV file that is then used to feed your AutoCash engine. And then these applications have their own AutoCash engine, so you don't have to depend on the ERP AutoCash capability. This typically increases the AutoCash hit rates we've seen as high as 90%. Automatically creates deductions. So short payments comes in, the deduction is created. And again, can accommodate easily the new forms of digital payments, the wallets, and some of the ones that we talked about earlier. So that's the overview. Let's just go to the next level of detail here so you understand it. And again, the phrase is a little long, digital data capture assistance, but it's all about extracting the remit data, which, remember, we said came from many different sources and many different formats. And how do you make sense of that? Now, a human being can do that after about a year on the job. But wow, what's exciting is with artificial intelligence is these digital assistants can now do that. And they can get that information, that remit information, from a vendor portal, from your own EIPP portal, from whatever files the customer sends or the bank sends, whatever format those files are in, from the EDI transmissions, and the remit information conveyed by Square, PayPal, Stripe, those new payment modes. And that's a big thing. That's maybe the major task in cash application, and it does it automatically. And then with its own AutoCash engine, it posts those payments to the right invoices. Again, has great capability to integrate with the banks and with your own ERPs. You can set the what I call automatic small balance write-off tolerance wherever you want it. So again, if you have an invoice for $900, 900 euros, and the customer pays 880 euros, leaving a 20 euro difference, do you really want to create a deduction, route that to somebody who then researches it and resolves it for 20 euros? Or do you want to just say, you know what, that's close enough. Let's consider this invoice paid in full, close both the invoice and the payment and the short payout, and move on. Well, certainly that capability exists here, and you can vary that tolerance quickly and easily. Interestingly, it also provides some nice cash forecasting capabilities, and we'll get into that in a minute. And what I alluded to earlier is the AI outperforms RPA, particularly when dealing with multiple unknown and varied formats. Whereas the RPA, the bots kind of lock in. You can have a bot that can read the Walmart vendor portal very, very well, but they can't read the Target vendor portal. You need to create a different bot, whereas the AI has a much broader capability there. Let's talk a little bit about the analytics capability that it has. All of these applications now have enhanced analytics capability. And where does that come in handy for cash application? Well, first of all, your dashboard. I mean, particularly if you have a relatively high volume cash application operation. There's a lot of payments coming in, a lot of payments need to be applied. It's a real process, and you want to monitor that process. The input, the output, what's the backlog? Is the backlog going up or is it coming down? How many unapplied payments are in the backlog? How old are they? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? So you can design a custom dashboard and get reporting on all those indicators and attributes of your Cash App process. And then the analytics capability comes in very handy to identify root causes of problems, unapplied, misapplied cash, where the bottlenecks might be, pinpoint or identify who your high unapplied cash customers. And why is that? Why do they keep sending you payments and inadequate remit advice? Well, you can compile that data, get some insight, and approach them and work with them to implement a solution that will reduce the amount of unapplied. You can engage the predictive analytics to forecast errors, and also comes in very handy in cash forecasting, because remember, you've got all this historical data on payments coming in, the volume of payments by customer. And with the analytic capabilities, you can use that data combined with some forecasted sales data to get a pretty good cash forecast. So the benefits, well, I've been talking about them the whole time. Productivity. As productivity can be huge. So when you eliminate all the manual data extraction and input, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Reduce the bank fees. You don't have to pay the bank to do it. The cash gets applied faster and more accurately. And so you've got some nice cost savings through productivity and bank fees. You maintain your customer accounts in a better condition. You don't hold orders unjustly because your cash is applied promptly and those customer accounts are up to date when you have to make a decision whether or not to hold an order. And that all adds to the customer experience, or maybe more accurately, avoids harming. So some nice benefits here, some big leaps forward in productivity and cost. Let me share with you a success story. This was a client, heavy presence in Europe, dealing with those European challenges that we talked about. IT company, good size, 3 billion, had a number of the Emagia modules, but primarily the Cash App deductions and analytics here as we talk about cash application. You know, Oracle ERP, 58, listen to this complexity, 58 business units, 44 countries across the globe, many in Europe, 6 or 7 different languages they dealt with in Europe, and 170 banks. That's a lot of banks. Good number of them in Europe. So when you think of the level of complexity here, it was very high, and I think very typical of the challenges you face in Europe when applying cash. And the results, well, the auto cash hit rate went from 45% all the way up to the 85-90 range, which is excellent anywhere and excellent for Europe. Shows the power of this AI-driven data extraction. So what do we want to remember from today? First of all, there is a large opportunity out there, a large opportunity for improvement. And, you know, as a manager, you're probably always being asked, you know, you always want to show progress. You don't want to just maintain the status quo, you want to improve. Well, here's a big opportunity. AI is the key, and it can perform 70 to 90% of the manual operations. That's an impressive percent. Your questions.
Thank you very much, John. Great presentation again. And let me just remind all the participants to post in your questions in the chat window at the bottom of the WebEx. And here we go. I'm going to take you through for some of the questions. The first is, of all the challenges inherent in cash application process, which present the greatest challenge applying cash in Europe?
Okay, good question. And there are a lot of challenges. You know, when I did that slide, like this third or fourth slide, challenges in Cash App, I was surprised how many there were when you actually list them. But the challenges that most important in Europe is the variation in currencies and languages. That's what makes the challenge much more difficult. You know, I mean, I always compare it to the operations here in the US. I mean, one language, one currency. And still it's not always easy. So when you add that complexity, that's perhaps the major challenge. And the multiple number of banks that most of our clients, most companies that I'm aware of, end up dealing with a lot of banks, one way or another. Those are the major challenges in Europe.
Thank you, John. This question is, can AI document data capture assistance extract data from portals?
Yes. Yes, it can, from both your customers' vendor portals and also your own customer care or electronic invoice presentment and payment portal. That's a big help, particularly as you drive more and more volume to those portals, and more of your customers refer you to their vendor portals.
Thank you. I think we just have 1 more minute, and we're going to go with the last question. How can analytics help a routine business operation such as cash application?
Well, I think one of the big benefits is monitoring a flow, right? I mean, that's what a process is. So you got all these payments coming in, they have to be handled, and you move on, and tomorrow you do it all over again. And again, the need for speed and accuracy is very, very high. You have to monitor that flow. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? The backlog's growing? Are they aging? How's the accuracy? How's the speed? So the analytics will enable you to construct a customized dashboard that fits your needs at your company to monitor that flow. And, you know, if everything's going well, you look at the custom dashboard, a couple minutes in the morning, and hey, everything's good. Let me move on to something else. And then if you do have problems, the analytics capability helps you pinpoint them and also develop data so you can get an understanding of how prevalent the problem is and the benefits you will gain from correcting the problem. You don't want to spend $200,000 to correct a $20,000 problem, right? So that's where the analytics data comes in handy.
So, absolutely. We are on top of the hour over here. And thank you, John, for another great session for our audience today. I would now like to also thank all the participants for joining us today for this session. And also wanted to invite you all to our next masterclass, which is going to be on 17th of June, which is again a Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. The topic for our next masterclass is Save Logbox Fees with Remittance Data Capture AI. So we look forward to seeing you. And in case if you do have any questions, please do write to us at info@emagia.com. And you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Akshay. Thanks, everyone, for attending.